Appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Mike, for the introduction. I wanted to start with a little bit of a weird question. Do you guys remember the BlackBerry? Who here had a BlackBerry? Okay, a lot of us had a BlackBerry. I can guarantee you back in 2011, when there were 85 million worldwide users on BlackBerry, the executives there at that company had no idea that within 5 years, they would completely exit the market of smartphones. And what happened is the consumer market shifted, it changed. Consumers wanted the touchscreen, and iPhone and Android just came and they just ate their lunch. They were out of the market. And once innovation has been adopted, the landscape is forever changed. And so today I want to talk to you about sustainability, because sustainability is to manufacturers what that touchscreen was for smartphone providers. And think about the rate of innovation. Think about that, 5 years. So 5 years from now, sustainability is going to look completely different. The whole manufacturing conversation is going to change around it. So I spent the first 20 years of my career working very closely with Fortune 500 companies from a manufacturer's perspective. And when we didn't win programs, we didn't always know why. We thought maybe we weren't at the right price point. Maybe it wasn't the right service offering. It's probably the sales rep's fault. You know, we can always blame it on the sales rep. I was a salesperson, so I can say that. But I'll tell you now, working with a sourcing company that collaborates so closely with these Fortune 500 companies, sustainability has a seat at the table of every decision that's being made. So I was sitting with an SVP of procurement of one of the world's largest hotel chains, and he came to the table and cited off the top of his head their goals for carbon emission reduction, for savings for water, energy, plastic reduction, landfill waste, off the top of his head. And he went on to even say that those goals take precedence over cost savings. Now, has anyone in this room ever worked with a procurement person? Raise your hand if you've ever worked with a procurement person. Okay, so you know I almost fell out of my chair when I heard that, right? I mean, takes precedence over cost savings, you just never hear that. And in meeting after meeting after meeting, I'm hearing the same thing from every single one of these corporations, because sustainability is key. And that's a great advantage for you all as industrial manufacturers, because you have an opportunity to be right there with a key differentiator in the marketplace. So I want you to remember 3 things about sustainability as it relates to industrial manufacturing. Number 1, brands are forcing you all to bring sustainable solutions to the table. And the reason why is they're being forced. They're being forced by consumers, by the investment community, and the government. And what this looks like is a study that said 76% of consumers said they'd walk away from companies that treat the environment poorly. The World Economic Forum posted one that said 73% of Gen Z would pay more for a sustainable product. They would actually pay more for a product if they deemed it to be more sustainable. Gartner said 85% of investment decisions take a look at ESG as a financial health or risk mitigation factor. 85%, so follow the money here. Consumers want it, investors want it, and don't even get me started on the government regulations, right? Starting with EU's corporate sustainability reporting disclosure, as well as the proposed legislation in for the SEC that's going to require public disclosure. And that's not even counting the fact that apparently we want our kids and our kids' kids to live on a green earth, and we want them to be able to breathe the air. We can just take that out of it. These factors are happening, and they're pushing very rapidly. So as Mike mentioned in the intro, we talk about scope 1, 2, and 3 as it relates to emissions. And scope 1, the emissions that you do within your own organization, company vehicle. Scope 2, the energy you purchase. Scope 3, 15 different categories, which is all other. And that's in essence the supply chain. This is a really cool chart because Mike said 80% on average is made up of scope 3. This shows you by sector. So if your customers are in the financial services, the capital goods, transport, real estate, construction, all the way down to food and beverage, which are probably your customers, right? That means This orange here represents the percent of the Scope 3 emissions to their total emissions. It's huge. So if they're being forced into net neutrality, carbon neutrality, where are they going to get it from? You guys. That's exactly where they're going to. They're going to you all. That's what's going to make an impact, which is number 2, manufacturers that differentiate sustainable solutions to the supply chain have a huge competitive advantage. If you can come to the table with quantifiable, measurable advantages, you have a seat at the table. This is what that looks like in real life. You know, we talk about general examples. In real life, this is what it looks like. One of a large global food supply companies was conducting a packaging review. And they were taking a look at their existing substrates that they were using, and a manufacturer brought to the table an alternative substrate that had an opportunity for them to cut down on their environmental footprint. Well, this particular manufacturer had invested in the third-party audits, the certifications, and was able to come to the table with actual factual numbers about what improvement this product would make to their environmental footprint. There's a lot of other factors outside of these 3, but here's a couple that they considered. And then this was not a plug-and-play example, because anybody knows if you say, oh, I have product A and product B, and this one's more sustainable, which one do you want, right? You pick B. It's not always like that, because there are a lot of financial considerations to be made. This required capital expenditures in terms of new equipment that they needed, employee resources in order to train, a significant amount of auditing, because if they're going to make these decisions, they want to make sure that it's real, and collaboration up and down the supply chain. So before it comes into their organization, while it's in their organization, and then downstream and co-packing before it gets on the shelf of the grocery stores that you all see out in the market. So this was not an easy decision to be made, but they made the decision because it was important. The crazy thing about this is one of the other manufacturers that was being considered in this example had almost identical processes, but they had not invested in the certifications, they had not invested in the third-party audits, they had not invested, and they didn't come to the table talking about it. They were doing it, but they didn't market it. They didn't come to the table, and they weren't even considered, because as soon as that company came to the table with the quantifiable, measurable results, it was only them and their existing substrate. Those were the only factors they were considering at that point. That's how big it is. Which brings me to number 3, transformative sustainability strategies are the key to success. So if you take a look at, people say sometimes, sustainability is a journey, and I would disagree completely. It's not a journey, it's not fun, we're not taking pictures and enjoying the ride as we get there. We have a point where we're starting, it's a destination. You have where you are now, and you have where you're going. And along the way, you have to set key benchmarks of what's gonna happen in order to get there. And you start with doing more of the good and less of the bad, but ultimately more bad is not a strategy, because no one wants to be like the less baddest manufacturer. You ultimately have to optimize, which means looking at every major business decision that you do through the lens of sustainability, whether it be the people that you're hiring. Are you hiring the right folks that have transformative sustainability experience? Are you investing in the right technology? When you buy new equipment, are you buying like for like? Or are you determining if there's a more sustainable way to approach it? On down to the processes within your organization. And we all heard of the, I say avoid a couple things. One is the broad, wild, unsubstantiated public goals. Does anybody remember all the CPGs that said they were going to be plastic free by 2025? That's not happening, right? We're a long way from that. There are a lot of carbon neutrality promises by 2030. You won't see anything about that on their website now. It seemed like it was a long way off, but it wasn't. It wasn't long enough. And in fact, the crazy thing about that that's very interesting is Accenture did a study of the Global 2000, the largest public and privately held companies across the globe, and they said about 37% of them have publicly stated goals for carbon neutrality. At the current rate they're working, 93% of them will fail. 93% will fail at the current rate. In fact, they said they have to double the acceleration rate by 2030 in order to have a chance. And even if they do that, there's still a quarter of them that'll fail. So it's very important to take a look at this and make sure that you're taking action today. The one thing the Accenture study did say that those that have a target are advancing faster than those that don't. So those of you that raised your hand, you're on the right track. Consumer distrust is at an all-time high, and so we hear a lot of the greenwashing statements, companies putting a stamp of sustainability on something that's somewhat questionable. I really encourage you to not do that because it's the best way to lose credibility with your customers. And the latest trend right now is green hushing. Like, let's just not talk about it and hope it goes away. I mean, maybe if we don't talk about it, it's not going to happen, but that's not exactly true because sustainability is not a fad that's going to go away. This is here to last. So if brands are willing to change their entire operations to achieve it, and if procurement folks at some of the largest companies in the world can cite their goals off the top of your head, it tells you that companies that are aligning their business practices, their investments, and their people are winning the deals across the board. And as long as there are companies that are coming to the table with sustainable alternatives, which there are, those that are not are at a serious disadvantage. Speaking of a disadvantage, I have a BlackBerry right here. If anybody would like to trade me for their iPhone 14, you can meet me over here at the side. But thank you, I appreciate it.